bulk of the British people decided individually and collectively to oppose just about everything that their politicians had told them. My group is paralleled with Labour Leave, with the Liberal Democrats, with people in the Scottish National Party that opposed the views that their politicians were feeding them. And the politicians at that point should have woken up. They should have realised that they did not have even proper majority support in many cases in their own voter bases. And yet they continue now, even 3 years on, to try to persuade us that we were wrong when we decided to seek an alternative future. Can I take you back to what it was like on the 23rd of June? I, like you, I expect, was campaigning very hard, canvassing and leafleting. And where did we go? Did we go to the rich areas of town? Did we walk up and down the long drives of the thatched houses in the most wealthy suburban parts of our towns? No, we didn't. We went to places like the council estates, we went to the ordinary folk of Britain, we went to the housing associations, we went to the terraces, we went to the football stadia, we went to the old people's homes, and we canvassed and we worked that victory. Marginal as it was, we won it on the backs of the support of ordinary people. I take you back to the way you felt the day after, the morning of the 24th. That morning, I was at a count, like many of you, I suspect. Mine was the Manchester count, and the very moment I arrived, a Liberal Democrat lord, a guy who is still famously in the Remain and the People's Vote campaign, told me it was all over before we'd even started to hear the votes. He said that Nigel Farage had already conceded and that we were going to lose, by a tight margin, but we were going to lose. And then do you remember the feeling when you heard the first results, like Newcastle, and then, deliciously, Sunderland? Not only a victory, but a handsome victory. And all these places then that were reeled out over the count. We heard from so many parts of the country that we don't normally hear from. We heard about Eastern England towns, the sort of places, market towns, ex-industrial towns, which time has not been kind to. We heard from the fishing ports, we heard from the depressed parts of the world, the places which aren't marginal constituencies and so don't normally feature in votes. We heard from the northern manufacturing towns, and my, didn't we also hear from the Midlands? I mean, I think Rushcliffe, south of here, is just about the only Eastern Midland district which voted in favour of the EU. Just about everywhere else, certainly all the places where ordinary folk lived, we won. And we won handsomely. We even won Birmingham, a university town, and that was towards the end of the count, and by that time it was pretty obvious we were going to win, aided perhaps by an act of God, a hand of God, where that tremendous thunderstorm had absolutely saturated London in the last moments of their polls, and as a result their turnout was less than enthusiastic. But the lovely thing is that in that referendum we heard from all of the depressed parts of this country. We heard from the places where shopping streets have been demolished by big out-of-town trading. We heard from the places which have lost all of their quality jobs, all of the manufacturing jobs that they used to have, all of the places which have been crushed by European Union multinational companies that have taken away everything from their public services contracting to their provision of services. Now we think back 2 years on, and our vote has been denied, and yet we must remain positive. We, at the end of the day, we are the Democrats in this country. It's been very difficult because we have been treated like children by our politicians, who have offered us a treaty, an international treaty, that abrogates all of the things that we fought for 3 years ago. Things like the customs union, things like the withdrawal agreement, the backstep. All of those things are the genuine abrogation, the abrogation of Article 50, which the Remainers are now campaigning for. That abrogation is only one of a series of abrogations. They have abrogated the promise that was given to us in 2016. There is a huge amount of money at stake, ladies and gentlemen, the amount of money that we need to be able to put right some of the wrongs that are going on in so many of these depressed parts of the country. £96 billion a year bleeds out of our economy just in trade of goods with the European Union. We also have an income deficit of about 18 billion, and that's on top of the much contested 11 billion pound a year figure that we give to the European Union in a direct subscription. All in all, about 111 billion bleeds out of our economy for each year that we stay in this thing. And that's not a small amount of money. I mean, that's more than, for example, we give all of the schools. It's about 3 times what we spend on defence. It's getting on for the same amount of budget as the whole of the National Health Service. We should also be thinking about that 39 billion that we don't have to give to the European Union, but we seem to be giving them almost as a matter of a goodwill payment, just to be nice. That 39 billion divides down by the 30 million taxpayers in this country to £1,300 per taxpayer. Now, I imagine most of you pay taxes. I and my family, 3 earners. That is £4 grand. £4 grand of public money that has been taxed off my family. It's not difficult to think of a few good things. I mean, charities, for goodness sake. How about some local voluntary activity? How about some support for some of the hard-pressed public services in my district that I could spend that £4 grand usefully on? But oh no, it has been given by our gutless Parliament to the EU without really any questions being asked. Meanwhile, our public services suffer from austerity. But ladies and gentlemen, keep thinking. The tide of history is still with us. It is not with our opponents. We have to keep campaigning. No deal is now the most popular of all of the options available according to opinion polls. And so while people think we have been let down, there is still plenty of stuff that we can do. Now people are talking about how we might act. Burning European Union flags, non-payment of the BBC licence fee, non-payment of council tax. People are talking about civil disobedience, demonstrations of course. Round my way, they recently blockaded the M60, which is the orbital motorway around the whole of Manchester. People are talking about not buying European Union produce, decapitating the leaders of the Remain campaign in the Commons by just simply deselecting them, or of course voting against them. We have been here before, and it's not immediately obvious what the strategy is that will win, but something will win. Back in the poll tax times, do you remember that? Popular power eventually defeated them and led to the removal of the then Prime Minister. And wasn't she sad to go? But it had to go, it had to happen. So ladies and gentlemen, I do not yet know what the strategy that we need to adopt collectively is yet, but my lord, there will be one. Bring me my bow of burning gold. Bring me my arrows of desire. Bring me my spear. Clouds unfold. Bring me my chariot of fire. I will not cease from mental fights, nor shall my sword sleep in my hand, till we have built Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land.
Thank you very much, Mark. Okay, everybody, I'd like to introduce our final speaker this morning.